Howdy BookTube. What's going on? This is your Readership Tag. It's original by Strip Cover Lit. They do a lot of great tags. So I was tagged by Amy over at FromTheDustyBookshelf, Ian at BNB Books, and Mark over at Richardson Reads. My thanks to you folks for the tag. You know I'm a tag guy. I enjoy these. Let's do this. Number 1. Who influenced your beginning as a reader? It would be my mother. She started out reading to me when I was little. Probably initially to get me interested in books, because we had a few of those around the house, and after I got hooked, I would ask her, maybe to the point of being aggravating. I actually need to ask her if that bothered her, because I would ask her to read to me before I learned to read quite a bit. Mother had a great reading voice. Number 2, what is the first book you remember? That would be On Cherry Street. When I was in the 1st grade, I went to a little 2-room schoolhouse down here in 1969, actually. I used to think it was 68 for some reason, but it was 1969 to 70. The last year they had the school here, and I actually wrote a poem about it, which we're going to get to on Tank Top Tuesday. Now, we started out with, the fundamentals, ABCs and all that stuff, and reading for some reason, it came pretty easy to me. And we went through 2 small books, and then we got into this hardcover book called On Cherry Street, which I recently looked up, and I have to get a copy of this. It was 224 pages, and it was published in 1961, and apparently we were still using it 8 years later, which was cool with me. And not to be a jerk about it, but there were only 3 of us who had advanced to that point, and we were kind of sitting over here at this table, and our other fellow students were still working on the other ones. So you kind of felt like a jerk, but you were also a bit prideful, because you're like, hey, I'm reading this big book, they're still in that one. I know that sounds mean, but I was in the 1st grade. So number 3, what is the first book that impacted you? This was one of those tough tag questions. And obviously I had to spend a little time thinking about it. And it has to be The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty, which came out in 71. Where I would have been 8 years old. I heard people talking about it. And coming from a small community, raised in a church, a Baptist church, there was nothing more terrifying than being demon possessed. So this book was it was pretty frightening. So it'd be The Exorcist by William P. Blatty. 4, what author was your first love? It may have been comics, but I read so many comics, I have to nail it down to someone who wrote books frequently, and that would be Jim Kajelagard. He wrote Big Red, Boomerang Hunter, Fire Hunter, and I enjoyed all of these. I read every one of his books that I could get my hands on. A lot of animal stories, survival stories. That was just my thing. So be definitely Jim Kajelagard. 5, what is one book that has been on your TBR for too long? That's Creation by Gore Vidal, and I'm getting ready to fix that, because Here's the thing: I have never read any Gore Vidal. Obviously heard him mentioned for the majority of my life, and just never tried any of his stuff out. And I actually seen him in the movie Attica, and I was like, I'm gonna have to read that dude someday. So got my hands on this book, and in the next month or two, I'm gonna give it a whirl. So actually, for me, it was an author, but you know the questions. It wants a specific book, so I'm going to go with Creation by Gore Vidal. 6. Go-to suggestion for a new reader. Well, new reader, that would depend on what genre that you are interested in. If you are interested in science fiction, we'll go with my usual answer, and that would be Midworld, if you're just getting into sci-fi. If you're just getting into horror fiction, I would suggest probably Carrie or The Stand by Stephen King. If you're into fantasy, I would probably go with Spell Singer by Ellen Dean Foster. Excuse me. If you're into nonfiction, probably Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee by D. Brown. 7. What are you currently reading? I am currently reading The Eye of the World, and this is part of Jason's organized readathon. We're supposed to go through all these. I'm not quite sure I'm going to make it, but I'm enjoying this one so far. I think there are like 14 books in this, 12 of them written by Robert Jordan. That's Jason over at Jason's Weird Reads. And then I'm reading God, Emperor of Dune by Frank Herbert, and I'm doing this as a buddy read with Elena Macradina. So that is what I'm currently reading. 8. Who do you tag? Not quite sure who all has done this. It's been out a couple weeks, so I'm going to go with Benjamin Barnes, Stephanie over at LattesAndMockingjays, Kara over at Wild Book Garden, and Mindy at Mindy's Book Journey, and Ryan over at Madman Reads and Rocks. So if you folks are interested in doing this tag, go for it. My thanks to Amy, Ian, and Mark for tagging me. As always, excuse me. Sorry. Cheers, my friends. Thanks for watching.